Recently, there were lots of the political news around Ukraine, Donald Trump, Putin, and so on, but at first I want to start this video from the front lines review because it matters more compared to what politicians nowadays say, because sometimes they're just delusional. This military map is presented by the Michael Santos-3 analytic. He usually is very precise in his researches because he analyzes the real evidence mostly captured by the drone surveillance cameras. So actually we have the confirmation that Ukraine started the operation against the Russian army on the Russian territory. This is the Belgorod Oblast. Yesterday I started to receive this information mostly from the Russian channels, but today I have the confirmation about it from the independent analytics or pro-Ukrainian sources even, who stated that definitely Ukraine crossed this Russian-Ukrainian border and has at least 3 of the directions of attack. One towards Davydov, as you can see it's already in the gray zone. The other one goes to Grafovka. This settlement is divided into 2 parts by the river, and there is also a limited attack towards this area which is not far away from Perlesia. Still you can see that everything of that is in a gray area because Ukraine wasn't capable really for now to create a robust bridgehead. Moreover, it seems like Russians understood the direction of the Ukrainian so far limited assault, and they used their FPV drones together with Lancet drones to stop Ukrainian attack convoys. Yeah, Ukraine definitely created those small convoys like 4 Surrey vehicles which were stopped at least in this direction. We have the confirmation about it. Why do I like this military map? Because you can click and cross-check the information with original source. So for example, here we have the FPV drone flying Russian FPV and they hit Ukrainian vehicles. As you can see here, it's the Ukrainian T-64 tank with triangle tactical sign. Well, we also have some of the evidence from the Russian Telegram channels. For example, they stated, and definitely they showed the video of how they used the Lancet drones against the Ukrainian vehicles in the place. And also some photos of the significantly damaged Ukrainian engineering equipment which Ukraine used to propel their forces towards Belgorod to demine the way for the tanks and infantry fighting vehicles. Well, still we receive kind of the limited information about what is happening in Belgorod, but judging on those images which appear in internet, and some of them have definitely been confirmed coming from Belgorod, well, I see only the losses for Ukrainian side, unfortunately. So a general success, if it is there, it is for now quite limited. But Ukraine hasn't yet been using its main forces in the region to outnumber the Russian resources here. No, it's just the limited attack. From the terrain perspective, I would say this area is also quite difficult. There are many of the war obstacles, like for example this lake over here or this lake, but it seems like Ukrainian army found a way to Demidovka, probably using this road, making it partially controlled by Ukraine at least. But in the other direction, here we have just a single road with a crossroad to go to this village, or there is just another field road to proceed, so Russia actually may maintain control over several of the passes and it would be enough for them. You cannot go all across this lake, for example, or across this terrain because there is the small river here with their tanks. It's impossible. So yeah, Ukrainian army, because of terrain, is also quite limited in this direction. Well, I guess that the only reason for Ukraine to start their attack towards the Belgorod Oblast is that because not far away from this place, there is the Kursk operation still ongoing. Russia took recently more of the ground. They are fighting against the Ukrainian army, so probably Ukraine wants Russia to send their reinforcements out from the Kursk region to Belgorod, and that may reduce the pressure on the Ukrainian army, which is actually actively withdrawing from the place. But again, there is no any encirclement of the Ukrainian army and no risk of the encirclement, as Donald Trump, by the way, repeated yesterday once again that Russia is successful in Kursk. The Russian army encircled a Ukrainian one. We don't even hear this bullshit information from the Russian military bloggers. We get it only from the official Russian propaganda media, from Putin himself and from Donald Trump. But no any evidence about the Ukrainian army encirclement is provided. Moreover, even the Russian military maps show that the situation is good for Ukrainian army. It still controls the vast part of the border between Ukraine and Russia, which making it safe for Ukrainian army to withdraw. And moreover, Russians were forced to surrender. For example, here in Basovka village, let's go and review it. We have the link towards this Twitter, and definitely 47th Brigade, it seems like it is still active in the Sumy region at least. It shows that after a couple of shells, Russians who stayed in the local village were forced to surrender to Ukraine Ukrainian army. So who should Donald Trump be concerned about, Russians or Ukrainians, even in the Kursk region? And still Ukraine controls Kursk region, for example, in Guba, this small village over here. In the northern side, well, the only village under control by Ukraine is Aleshna. Gogolovka went into the gray zone. Yesterday there was the information shared by some of the Ukrainian members of parliament that Syrsky will be dismissed by some other commander. Well, I cannot comment that really, but it seems like this information is not correct for now. Well, at least Zelensky and Ukrainian military command stays calm about it. So as for this region and as for Belgorod, I'll keep you updated, but so far from what I see, this is not a successful operation from Ukrainian army with those losses that I saw before. Plus I watched the videos of how Ukraine used some of the all-terrain vehicles, very fast, mobile, but nevertheless they were hit by the Russian FPV drones. So the small attack brings many losses as for me, but again, I'm not a military commander, maybe they know more. We'll see for sure in the coming days whether this operation of the Ukrainian armed forces is successful. For now it seems like Russia left their positions in Davydovka and nearby tree lines just to avoid direct confrontation and losses. They tried to use FPV drones and other drones. Actually it's the tactics of Ukrainian army, which probably Russians also mastered. Well guys, nevertheless we have the good news from the Pokrovsk direction. Here Ukrainian army was really successful, taking lots of the ground. In direction where Russia was the most successful for the last few months. Remember how they occupied Dachne, went to Olakli, Andriivka, but now Ukraine tries to get the initiative and uses even tanks out there. Let's check it out. So 46 separate Ukrainian air mobile brigade of Ukrainian army did some sort of the counterattack using tanks. Plus some of the light armored vehicles, also FPV drones were used to kick Russians out from the local positions. And during the nighttime, FPV drones hit the Russian artillery. Awesome job. Guys, sorry I cannot present you the full videos coming from the front lines because of the censorship of this platform, but nevertheless I use Telegram. You may check it out in the video description just below, and there I share more information and more videos with a very low censorship. By the way, if you are concerned about Telegram, we have the good news about it. So Durov was released from France after he gave some of the information and access to the French intelligence. Well, he will visit the French court someday, but it is understandable that he will not be jailed. He is working now with the French intelligence and French government. So there will be less threat for the national security of France and in general for Western countries. By the way, French President Emmanuel Macron also started his Telegram page, so it says a lot, and I have my own, so you may again visit it in the video description just below. Telegram gives me freedom because of the low censorship. But now let's go again to the front line. So here I showed you the video of the successful Ukrainian operation. Ukraine re-entered Andriivka village and took back the territories which were in the gray zone, establishing control over this tree line and some of the streets of Andriivka. But here in Constantinople, Ukrainian army was even more successful. I've just updated this map, by the way, you may find it also with the link below. And here Ukraine controls lots of the streets, households. Most of the sites are using their surveillance drones. So yeah, pretty much those are the good news. So in general, in Pokrovsk direction, Russia lost initiative. But at the same time, I say a new assault operation of the Russian army in Zaporizhia direction. Well, this is the new update. Russians took control over some of the fields, tree lines not far away from Stepova village. I guess the Ukrainian army was caught a little off guard. Russia sent some of the reinforcements and now they have 3 of the assault vectors. One towards Mali Sherbaki village and partially it is already under the Russian control. You know guys, according to Ukrainian officials, including President Zelensky, Russia is preparing for one more big attack, which might happen this spring, and Russia accumulated roughly 200,000 soldiers for that. Well, I cannot prove that, but I'm just telling you what Ukrainian officials say. Could it be? Yes, it could be. Especially then they a little reduce their pressure in Pokrovsk direction. They understand that Ukrainian defense is kind of robust there. So why not to use the forces where Ukraine doesn't expect the attack, for example in Zaporizhia. But the thing is that Ukraine expects that attack in Zaporizhia because according to my information, and I know it for sure, Ukraine dig down kind of the robust defense lines there. We have the confirmation about it from many of the sources, including satellite images. So we'll see if Russia is going to be successful there. I don't think so. Alright, and probably the best news for today, indeed, there was the exchange of the prisoners of war. 175 Ukrainian warriors came back to Ukraine. awesome. Those are always great news. Some of the Ukrainian soldiers require medical attention simply because of the bad conditions in the Russian prisons. Well, in general, I would say that this time our soldiers look at least like humans. You might remember those old videos and photos where Ukrainian soldiers came like skeletons back from the Russian prisons. Here, at least, they were fitted. But again, conditions in general, especially for the medical assistance, those are terrible in Russia. Alright guys, let's continue with the good news. Ukraine launched the attack on the Russian military infrastructure in Crimea using FPV drones. So Russia lost lots of the radars and even the air defense systems. Like for example, this is the radar for S-300 and this is the S-300 launcher itself. One more S-300 radar and this is Panzer I-S air defense and one more radar, helicopter. Wow. Yeah, Mi-8 helicopter somewhere on the Russian base. And all of that was hit by Ukrainian FPV drones. So how did they make it to Crimea? It's really far away from the controlled Ukrainian territory. Well, let me explain you. For that, let's take any sort of the military map and let's zoom in to Crimea, where Russia has lots of the military bases. So for example, Fedorovka near Saki, it's the air base for the Russian fighter jets with some of the air defense systems. So how the strikes are happening? Well, Russia hesitates to use their Black Sea Marine fleet for protection. They cannot put their ships there because Ukraine uses kamikaze drone boats. And also Russia cannot use their aviation helicopters or low-flying aircraft to hit those drones because Ukraine started to put the air defense missiles on those drones. That's why Ukraine almost freely goes somewhere to the sector not far away from the shore of Crimea with its drone boat equipped with the FPV drones. And those drones are flying to hit the military infrastructure somewhere in the Russian military airfields or elsewhere actually. The range of the modern-day FPV drone is roughly 15 kilometers, well, at least 15 kilometers, which gives the freedom for Ukrainian drone operators to use them all across the shore. But usually Ukraine doesn't send the only drone boat to this area. At least there are 2 drone boats, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 or 5, but the other drone boat should carry some of the air defense missile, not to let Russian helicopters or low-flying jets into this area for the drone boats to operate successfully with FPV. And if Russia sends their ship, for example, to attack those drone boats, well, drone boats, they have some of the TNT inside and they also kamikaze drone boats, so they may attack the Russian warship instead. So basically we have the situation where Russia has no defense against those FPV attacks on their own territory. It's like playing chess. For every move you have your own defense. So here Ukrainian drone boats are pretty much defended against everything. And I think that Ukraine also uses the satellite communication systems, so I'm sure that there are Starlinks installed on those drone boats, but not only. The European alternatives are also there. And as you can see, based on this experience, Russia cannot jam Starlinks. This feature goes only for Ukrainian army. Russia cannot use the same tactics with their drone boats, and Russia doesn't have those drone boats which could be efficient. And again, this is the video from the Ukrainian drone, FPV drone, which was launched from the drone boat, and it flies to hit some of the local critical infrastructure. By the way, Russians try to shut down the drone boat, but the shell goes to the ground right in front of the drone. As you see, it was Panzer I-S Russian air defense system. Also, some of the convoy was hit there by Ukrainian FPV drones, so drones are the nightmare for the Russian army, even in Crimea. By the way, my friends, if you want to support the job that I do here almost daily on YouTube, please join my Patreon. I'll put the link for it just in the video description below. Thank you so much for maintaining my motivation. Alright, it seems like even a partial ceasefire that was announced yesterday by White House and Russia doesn't work. Those are the regions of Ukraine where the air raids have been announced. And just this minute while I'm filming this video, there are 70 of the Shahed drones reported over Ukraine, and up to 200 drones expected to be only this night over Ukraine. We have this data from Ukrainian intelligence, and yesterday Russia hit some of the infrastructure of Ukraine. Ukraine responded, hitting Russian infrastructure. So it's the outcome of the Russian Shahed drone strike in Sumy region, which was recorded yesterday. The Russian drone somehow went even to Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is really far away from Ukraine, but Kazakhs already found those drones. It's crazy. Russia just possessed the danger for every of its neighbor. Like you might remember what they've done to Azerbaijani Embraer 190 civilian aircraft. And now they're striking Kazakhstan with their Shahids. Luckily, no one was hurt there. Drone landed perfectly in one piece because it ran out of fuel. So as I've told you, Ukraine responded on those Russian strikes by hitting the Russian gas and oil infrastructure. For example, this is the Russian oil pipe station in Krasnodarsky Krai, so it was used for the Russian oil export. Fire might look small, but it continues for more than 24 hours already. Indeed, it is huge and continue to expand. So Russia has the prompt response from Ukraine. Zelensky stated that if Russia continues strikes on our infrastructure, we're gonna respond. So I expect the same response or even more severe from Ukrainian side this night, because Russian drones have already been spotted in Ukraine. Well, it basically means that negotiations between Putin and Trump was nothing. Remember how yesterday Russian propaganda said that Putin agreed for the partial ceasefire and he ordered to shut down his own drones, which were flying to Ukraine by the time. Yeah, the Russian air defense shut down the Russian drones. It is absolute bullshit. But you know, it seems like Trump's team believed in this absolute nonsense. Well, at least I may judge it from the Trump's fixer opinion on the drone strikes. I'll expedite Witkov because he's really slow, so let's listen to him.
With regard to your question on some of the reporting with regard to the Russian drones last night, I have it on good information from a telephone call I had before I went on this show that President Putin issued an order within 10 minutes of his call with the president directing Russian forces not to be attacking any Ukrainian energy infrastructure. And any attacks that happened last night would have happened before that order was given. In fact, the Russians tell me this morning that 7 of their drones were on their way when President Putin issued his order, and they were shot down by Russian forces. So I tend to believe that President Putin is operating in good faith. He said that he was going to be operating in good faith to the president yesterday, and I take him at his word.
So Donald Trump and Witkov, they just got played by Russians. They believe into the real Russian propaganda. Moreover, they continue to spread it, sugarcoating everything for Russian side. Now I already showed you the proofs that Russia attacked Ukraine yesterday. It is a real thing that happened. And guys, unfortunately with the new White House administration, I do not expect anything good for Ukraine. And today again there was the phone call between Donald Trump and Zelensky. Zelensky agreed on a partial ceasefire as he agreed on the full ceasefire before. And yes, it was Zelensky's proposal for the partial ceasefire before, which was implemented as Donald Trump said by him. So Trump called this conversation as a very good. It lasted approximately 1 hour. I don't know if they require some of the translators or not, because 1 hour without translator is 2 hours actually with translator. Much of discussion was based on the call made yesterday with Putin in order to align both Russia and Ukraine in terms of their requests and needs. We are very much on track, and I'll ask Ruby and Waltz to give an accurate description of the points discussed. That statement will be put out shortly, so not as optimistic as you can see as with his yesterday's tweet after Putin's conversation. Well, again, I do not expect anything good from the Trump's team towards Ukraine. Well, what we know that in this conversation, Zelensky asked Donald Trump to provide more of the air defense systems, Patriots. Trump said that he will look to analyze that request. Well, if Trump supplies a couple of more air defense systems to Ukraine, he would proclaim it as his own victory. He would say in the future that he defended Ukraine against everything. He won this war. It happened because he supported Ukraine. That's what he says about javelins. Few of the javelins which he supplied to Ukraine in his first term. Obama sent to you just blankets and I sent to you javelins. You should be grateful. Say thank you. Say thank you. You might remember that from their meeting in the Oval Office. Well, Mike Waltz already said that there will be a meeting in Riyadh between a Russian and American delegation, and they will focus on implementing and expanding the partial ceasefire President Trump secured from Russia. Really secured? Okay, so what Russian drones are doing there in Ukrainian airspace? That's the question I asked yesterday and today. So there is no any partial ceasefire in real action. So as with encircled Ukrainian forces in Kursk region, Donald Trump will continue to spread his bullshit that Russia is not striking Ukraine. Trump lives in his parallel reality, so even if you present the evidence of the Russian drone strikes on Ukraine, he would not take those. And we have that evidence elsewhere, so I cannot show you those kind of the videos here, but I'll try to do it from my phone. So it's happening now. Just 5 minutes ago, this video was posted. I already reposted it on my Telegram. This is Slaviansk, Ukrainian city. A civilian infrastructure was hit with a drone that had a shrapnel warhead. Shrapnel maybe to cause more of the losses for Ukrainians. Civilians. That's Russia how it is. Never trust them, no matter what agreement you sign with them. Some of the talks out there about nuclear power plants of Ukraine, and Trump is really interested on take ownership, yes, United States ownership over those. For example, this is the article about the case from the Telegraph. And yesterday on a briefing, the Speaker of the White House definitely stated that Trump is looking for the American ownership of the nuclear power plants because that is how they will be secured. Kind of the strange proposal. What secures nuclear power plant? The ownership or the air defense systems? I would say it's kind of the really strange proposal. Maybe Trump is looking to get some of the profit from the Ukrainian energy, to sell Ukrainian energy for Ukrainians and obtain the money for that. Well, most of that energy infrastructure belongs to DTEK. The owner of this energy monopolist company is Rinat Akhmetov, who is the richest man in Ukraine, richest oligarch. So using protection of the Ukrainian energy infrastructure, Donald Trump is looking to get this business under control. That's the only reason I say. If Donald Trump really wants to secure Ukrainian energy, he should supply more of the air defense systems. The ownership here doesn't really matter. Well, maybe Donald Trump is also looking to make a deal with Russia about Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is the biggest one in Europe. I think that's the real thing what Donald Trump is seeking in Ukraine. He wants to get money. That's the only goal of his. Plus, they're looking to make the business as usual with the Russians. They already stated at many levels, I mean Trump's team, that they're gonna lift the sanctions of Russia if Russia follows at least ceasefire. So the war itself may not be over and Russia may still keep the territories which they occupied, but let's lift the sanctions from Russia because we want to make business. What it does, it basically encourages Russia to act in the same way once again because they're not punished. They were not really punished for interventions into Moldova, Georgia, Chechnya, Syria, Ukraine, so they will continue. It's 100%. They might follow ceasefire for a couple of years, but then they'll start one more big attack on Ukraine or maybe on some of the other European countries just to check out the 5th article of NATO, which I'm sure will not work or work with limits. But you know, I'm still optimistic because history shows us that those dictator regimes, they do not live for a very long time. After all, there is a very sharp and deep downfall for any sort of the dictator. And I'm sure it will happen the same with Putin. Now guys, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And as usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.